Janet, try it like you create it. And what I am doing today is testing out my Reinkers. And I have a whole set of Reinkers that I got from a lady going out of business. So I don't know how old these are. They are, I'm going to not pronounce this correctly. They're Tuscanico. They're Memento inks. All right. And I'm looking at the ones that say water based on them. And I'm looking to see if there's a date on here. And I'm not seeing a date. So what I found was recently just doing a tag. I was trying to create flowers and the ink kind of went through my watercolor paper, and here's the tag I'm talking about. Just take it out of its pocket here. And so I started out trying to make flowers, and it didn't go quite as well. But the colors in the ink, it was a cocoa brown, and it started to separate on me. And then I noticed it was bleeding through to the other side of the watercolor paper. And so looking at it, and it just became really interesting. And so the browns pulled out these greens and turquoise and some rust colors and browns. And so that made me think, what about the rest of the Reinkers I have? Do they also split into color? And so I am just giving it a try, and I'll show you. I'm gonna move you over a little bit here. I've already tested out a few, and what I'm seeing here, I'm just on a small piece of watercolor paper. I put water on my glass mat, and then I put the reinker into the water and let it bleed out, and then pick it up with the watercolor paper, and you can see that it does bleed through. But I'm looking to see if it breaks down in color. And this one, although not much activity, I have a feeling that once it's dry, we may end up seeing slight color differentiation there. And this is Lilac Posy. So I'm going to write this on here, and then I'm going to put it in my color chart guide. But this one was interesting. London Fog, it broke into color right away. Not a lot of bleed through. We see green on the back. Not as much green except right here in the intense middle. But we do see grays, and we're seeing a breakdown into a little bit of pink, I'm going to say. So that one is the one that reacted the most. Of course, with this one, New Sprout, which is a green, I'm seeing green breaking down into lighter green or a yellow. It could just be the fading of the ink color, but once it dries, we'll be able to see more. So I want to just move you back over here and show you what I'm doing. Now, you may not be able to see this, but I have a little scratched area right here on my glass mat. And so that is where I'm working. So I know where the water is on my glass mat. Otherwise, I have no idea where it is. So I'm taking my reinker, just because they've been sitting around for a while, just give them a little bit of shake. I don't even know if you're supposed to shake these or not, but I'm going to drop a drop of reinker into it. And then I just have some watercolor paper cut into little pieces here, and I go in and pick it up. Now I just push down on that water. I can see that it's spreading out, so I've got a little bit of color here, and then I can also see that it's starting to bleed through my paper. This is not high quality watercolor paper, obviously. And so there is what I'm getting from Desert Sand. It looks more like tone that's blending out into color, and I can tell you that I've got color bleeding out even around the outside here. So I'll put that there. Now I'm going to run out of space here on my glass mat for all of these colors. So I'll just do a few more with you and show you this one I thought might be interesting. It's called Potter's Clay. Sounded like it could be a mix of colors anyway, right? I don't know if waiting for me to put the lid on those matter at all or make a difference. You can see if I push down in the center, it comes right through to the other side. And if I lift up, we can take a look to see how that, if the color breaks at all. And so once they're dry, I will write on them what the color is. So just a couple more with you. I think you get the idea here, and I'm just looking. This one's interesting. Rhubarb stalk. Should be a purpley color, right? Interesting how when it hits the water, it does do some little water droplet breaking. And you can see without me even touching the center, it's bleeding through. All right, and I pick that up. Now, if there's any color left, like this one does have color left here in the area, I'm just gonna wipe it up with my tag or my watercolor piece. And then if I need to, I can bring in a rag. I'm kind of running out of dry baby wipes, so let's do a tissue here. Pick up, because I don't want that excess color to interfere with anything else that we're doing. Okay, so that was rhubarb stalk. Put that there. It doesn't look like it's breaking, but it did bleed quite a bit. All right, I'm gonna have to move to another part of my glass mat here pretty soon. How about Lulu Lavender? I might need a little bit more than that. I don't know. Maybe it's just a pale color. I don't know. All right, so not all of them are really breaking down. Let's see, I've got 2 more pieces of watercolor here before I have to cut some more. What color do I want to try? Cottage Ivy. Ooh, that's a bright one. All right, let's see if we can get it all on here. Huh. That is interesting. I don't know how it's going to dry. If what I'm seeing here is just the intensity of the water and it's going to dry as a flat color, we'll have to wait and see. Sorry for the squeak. I've got one more before I have to take a break and cut. How about, well, Ladybug is a red, and we know red is a more, it's not a blended color. We've got Sweet Plum, which I don't know have we done a Sweet Plum? We've got a couple of purples here, but we've got blues, Cantaloupe, that's a mixed color. Let's try Plum. I know Rich Cocoa breaks down, because I've used that, and I do need to make a card for it, so we can just go for that one. I'm using Rich Cocoa instead of the other one. All right. So just one little drop. Interesting, this is called Cocoa, and look how it broke into green already. And I know from the tag I showed you that it breaks into all these wonderful colors. That one's not even showing up as much, but what you can do is add more water on top to get it to try to bleed out. And look how intense that is on the bleed through. It's really a dark green there, and here we're getting some color shifting. All right, so this one's got a lot of excess water because I squirted it. All right, so that's what I'm doing, and once they dry, I'll come back and show you what they look like. So I have let these dry a little bit. They have not dried overnight, so they may still have a little bit of a color shift or a little bit of a change in intensity coming as the water dries out of the watercolor paper. I did use a heat tool on them, so hopefully they are dry enough. Now what I started to see happening makes sense in some ways, and in other ways it doesn't. And so I thought, as I had my color swatches here, I started to think, okay, I'll put them in color theory order, because those colors that are closer to our basic colors, go back to your color theory, okay, your primary colors, red, blue, and yellow, they're not going to move. they're not going to be made up of a bunch of other colors. But those that are now secondary or tertiary, those that have become more mixed, may break down into other colors, and that makes sense. However, some of the colors that they broke down to don't make as much sense as I thought it would. I did go through and label each one with the number that was on the refiller, or the reinker, and I put the name, and then I put them, well, I almost put them in the right number order. I've got one out of sync here. This is a 100. But I wanted all the pinky reds to stay together at the top. So I think that was my reasoning for what I did. But anyway, I went ahead and looked up the Memento color chart and double checked to see that the numbers are actually what are still on the color chart. So I will link to the color chart so that you can print it out if you're interested in seeing what colors there are. The other thing that I do is that when I do have a color chart, I mark off the colors that I own. So if I I'm just grabbing a Ranger color chart here. I keep this in my drawer with my Ranger inks. And you can see here, if they have a dot next to it, I own this color. All right, so that gives me an idea of what's still out there, what's missing in my color range, and then I can also look and see if I want that color. I can also take this chart with me to the store. I do not put this one in my color chart swatch book, but I should probably make a copy of it and put one there. But I have been keeping this in my drawer with the inks, and so one, I know where it is, and two, it does kind of get a little wrinkly in the drawer. So that's another thing. That's another downside to why I should make a second one. Okay, back to the mementos. In putting them down on my page so that I can put them into my color chart swatch book, I had decided I want to tape them in place, and the reason being is that I want to be able to flip them over so that you can see what's on the other side. All right, so if we think about color theory, red, close to a primary color, it's not going to break. And the lighter the color, it probably is going to be harder to at least see if it does break. So my theory comes into play here when I look at the cantaloupe, which is orange. Orange is made between red and a yellow. And so this one, it should show me both colors on the color wheel if I blend it out, but I'm not, and when I say blend it out, I mean mixing it with water to see if it'll break down in this process that I'm doing. And I've got some light happening around here, but I think that's just lighter of the color itself. So I'm not seeing the colors that are mixed to make this color. On this lilac posy, which I put up here in the red section because it does look a lot like red, it is kind of also a purpley color, and I'm not sure, it may have a little bit of a violet out here and a pink in here, but and I flip it over, it's not breaking down. So check it again tomorrow to see if there's any shift, if this darker center here actually has moisture in it and it's going to lighten. We'll see what happens with that. All right, so then we go to what I've got as lilac colors. And once again, my theory on the lighter the color, the less we're going to see the breakdown. And I'm seeing maybe a little bit of a difference here, but not a lot. So this one I'm going to say no to. But the one next to it here, which is a sweet plum, and it's just 2 numbers away from the Lulu Lavender, the sweet plum, we know plum, or purple, is made between red and blue. All right. see these little dots here? And this is one why I didn't want to glue the whole card down. And I've put an arrow on here to remind me to flip over and look at the back. Look at the intensity of the color that bled through. The back is more intense than the front. I mean, we're seeing a little bit of it right there, but we're seeing a whole heck of it back here. And I'm seeing a really bright blue and kind of a reddish purple in the center. And so this, I think I could play around with and get some activity. So that one interests me. All right, moving on to the blue colors. Of course, I see on this one, I see a halo here that is a darker blue. I think it's just more of the ink. And that what's spreading out here is just a lighter version of that. I could be wrong, but blue, once again, is a primary, so, you know, it's not made up of other pigments. So we've got Summer Sky. We've got Paris Dusk, which maybe is verging towards the purple lavenders colors. I thought it looked more like a blue, and you can see number-wise it's not that far away from the blues. So I have a 601, a 604, and a 608, but when I turn it over, I am seeing some color activity here. It is very subtle. I don't know if it's contamination on my part, but it looks like, from what I'm seeing here, that it has broken into a lavender and a darker purple. Maybe not two colors, but similar to each other on the color wheel, but intensity is a little different. So I think that has potential. All right. The other reason I was looking to see what ink was what, and when I was looking at their color charts, I went ahead and grabbed out one of my Memento dye ink, and then this is called a dewdrop. It looks like a little raindrop, and this is called Paris Dusk. This is called Paris Dusk. Nowhere on here do I see the number, but it's the same name. Oh, here, we did really small. I see it here. It says MD608, all right? So this color is the same as my swatch here, all right? And look at the difference between what I'm seeing here and how they're labeling this here. So those are the same, but then also they're rectangular ink pads, and I'm sorry I couldn't dig one out. I'm in the middle of moving things around in my studio, and I think my daughter has those up in her room right now. But I'll put a screen image up here to show you that what the other ink pads look like, and they are the same name and the same numbers. All right, so you'll know that what I'm experiencing here, the numbers, the colors, if you like them, you can buy them. They are on their color charts, and they do coordinate with what's out there. All right, Cottage Ivy, secondary color. It's mixed between a yellow and a blue. And we're seeing some color activity here, but when you can see I put an arrow on here to remind me to flip it over, because when I flip this one over, wow, look at the intensity of that color. Look at the blue and the green in there. And then we've got a dark green happening right here in the middle. But that blue is so vibrant. And so, I mean, it's like Bahama blue. Look at how bright that is. And I'm not seeing really any of that here. I do see some blue almost. Okay, especially where it's near the yellow. Color theory wise, yellow is going to absorb out of the green and make the green look more blue. That's what it's doing a little bit here. I do see the darkness here. I see the wash. I see a brighter, almost going towards yellow in the greens here. But when I flip this over and see the bleed through, there is so much more color activity here than what I saw on the front. What does this mean for your crafting? I'm not sure, but I found it interesting. It was an interesting study for me to do. Scientifically, I've taught color theory at the college level, and so doing this kind of makes a lot of sense to me, and I find it interesting. All right, so green, new sprout. It should probably break a little bit, but once again, my theory of the lighter colors not really doing much of anything. And then we've got our odd ones down here. Now these are all kind of in the brown family, and they might be a little gray. And those colors are made up of more color mixing. And so we know that the rich cocoa did break down because I showed it to you on the tag at the very beginning. So rich cocoa, we've got a brown out here. It really isn't a dark brown. It is a lighter brown. And then we've got like a forest green, I'm going to say. And as I flip it over, you're seeing blue and teal and that darker brown. So why, filtering through the watercolor paper to the back, are we getting more intense colors? That I don't know. That is something to look into and study. That the actual filtering through the paper, I mean, you would think going through a filter that you're, I don't know, it seems to me that we would have a brighter color here than we do on the back because it's bleeding through. But we're seeing more ink and more intense color here. If that makes sense to you, leave a comment down below and let me know what your thoughts are on why that happens. Potter's clay, flipping it over. And the reason I flipped this one over, and you can see here, hopefully you are seeing that, let me move that out of the way. It's not breaking down. It is in the brown family. Browns are in the yellow-orange category, so we know orange is a secondary color, so browns are broken down or mixed even more to get darker. To get a darker color, you're going to either mix it with black or its complementary color. What's the complement to orange? Anybody know? Complement to yellow. So if we start to look at the other side of the color wheel, the green makes a little bit of sense to me because you would use that to dull that orangey color. But here we're seeing kind of a rusty orange, and it's breaking down here, right? And I'm not seeing any green in it. Once again, it's a paler color, and so maybe that's why we're not seeing anything happening there. But, yeah, I mean, we know that red and green go together, right? And yellow and violet should go together. And blue and orange. So if we've got an orange base here and we're trying to break it down or dull it, we should see some blue in there, and I don't. So that one's a little unique to me, and that's why I put the arrow here. All right. So the green is the complement to the red, but yet red is in the orange, so that makes a little bit more sense to me. Okay, hope I'm not confusing you here. I'm going through this in my mind, trying to think color wheel across from each other, mixing, and if I mixed paint, what am I going to get? And it really depends on the purity of the paint as well, and what ground pigments it's coming from. So your artist grade pigments are the stronger original ground colors, where student grade aren't quite as strong and craft grade are even weaker yet. So it just depends on how close to the actual pigment, the ground, whether it's mineral or plant-based or whatever, from the original color, how close you are to it, to whether or not you're seeing it in there. I'm probably giving you more information than I'm confusing you more than you need to know. So let's move on to the next two colors. We've got Desert Sand. It is close to Potter's Clay. It is a lighter color. You notice here that I didn't put an arrow on it. It didn't bleed through. I don't see really any color shift here. It's kind of gray, it's kind of brown, it's kind of tan, which all comes through in the name of the color. So that makes somewhat sense to me. It's the making the sense of what's on the back of these is what I'm finding a little odd. All right. Although I know that the colors should shift or split into what it's made from. It's just what they are, and the intensity is what is throwing me off. All right. And so the last one here, London Fog. 901 London Fog means a gray to me. So if I look out here, I do see a gray. I do see other colors in the gray. I've got a pinky, musty, dusty rose color family here. I've got a darker, it could be gray, but it does seem to have some color in it. I'm not sure what, and it's not the dusty rose color. So when I flip this over, I've got teal. So we know green and red on the color wheel are opposites each other. You mix them together, you're going to get a darker, duller color because they're opposites. They tend not to like each other, and so they kind of mix more towards, I'm going to say mud, because when they're not pure, they're going to make mud, okay? But what we're seeing here, okay, so the green makes sense, but it's a bright, I know it's a very small amount here, but it's a bright, bright teal is what I'm seeing. So we've got a bright teal. I don't see any red back here. I see a bluish gray, maybe it has an undertone of burgundy in that gray, but it's a very, very small amount. But I'm seeing it here. I'm seeing some of the red family up here, and not really too much of the green. All right, and I should do a video on color theory and show you how colors shift from each other. So I will need to get out some of my teaching materials and do another video on that. So if this is interesting to you, subscribe. I promise you I will do a color theory video in the future to explain how colors shift each other, and when you put those colors next to each other, what happens. So if it's here on white, it may not look the same as if it's over here next to another color. I'll explain why that happens and how that happens, and show you examples of that happening. You can also shift colors to make them lighter and darker. All of this is really good to know if you're doing, painting and so forth. This may be going a little bit too deep for you if you're a crafter and you just want to see what the inks do. I apologize for my tangent and a little bit of deep diving into color, because as I started to do this more and more, I started to get more back into the teaching mode of what was happening with color and what I'm seeing happening and why I'm seeing it happen the way that it is. So if you don't like this kind of thing, I promise it's not in a lot of my other videos. If you do like this thing, let me know in the comments, and I'm happy to go further into it for you if you're interested. But yeah, the Memento Reinkers plus water do a lot of interesting things. The more they are closer to the complements, they don't do quite as much.